Welcome to The Explainer. Okay, today we're jumping into a really fascinating story coming out of Thailand. We're looking at how a surprisingly simple app is taking on a whole mess of problems for small-scale fishermen. We're talking everything from unfair fuel prices all the way to the impacts of climate change. All right, let's dive in. All right, here's how we're going to break this down. First, we'll look at the crisis these fishermen are up against. Then we'll introduce the digital solution they came up with. We'll walk through exactly how it works, discover some of the unexpected benefits, and finally, take a peek at what the future could hold. So let's start with the heart of the problem here. If you're a small-scale fisherman, your single biggest cost, by a long shot, is fuel. And the situation they're caught in, well, it's just deeply, deeply unfair. And just look at these numbers. They really paint the picture. A local fisher is paying around 33 baht a liter right at the pump. But then, you see the big commercial vessels. They're getting their fuel for as low as 23 baht. I mean, that's not just a small difference. It's a massive gap that puts a huge strain on their livelihood and their ability to even compete. Yeah, one source we looked at called it an inequality with a huge impact. And that really hits the nail on the head. The root of it is all in the pricing structure. See, the price at the pump is loaded with taxes and fees, and here's the kicker. These are costs the government actually has the power to adjust. So, as if that price problem wasn't enough, there's this massive environmental issue breathing down their necks: climate change. The oceans are getting warmer, then the fish, well, they're moving further and further offshore. So now these fishermen have to sail way farther out, burning more and more of that super expensive fuel, all just to catch the same amount of fish. You can see how this becomes a trap, a real vicious cycle. Okay, so you've got this tangled mess of a problem. What's the solution? Well, the idea that came up was pretty clever. It wasn't about just, throwing cash at the issue. It was about totally rethinking how the government provides support in the first place. And that core idea was a big strategic shift. They wanted to move away from the old way, a general subsidy, which is kind of like using a fire hose when you need a squirt gun. It's broad, inefficient, and a lot of the time it misses the mark. The new way? A targeted subsidy. Think of it like a laser delivering precise, data-driven support directly to the people who actually need it, based on their real, verified activity. Now, the engine that makes this whole thing run is something called data-driven policy. It's a bit of a fancy term, but it just means using real, verified information to make decisions instead of guessing. And the tool they built to do it? A simple mobile app called BAM, which stands for Boat and Marine Aid. All right, so this all sounds great on paper, right? But you're probably wondering, how does this actually work in the real world? How do you get money into a fisherman's pocket without creating some kind of bureaucratic nightmare? Well, the beauty of it is its simplicity. They designed the whole process to be incredibly straightforward. It's basically a digital bridge that connects the fisherman, the fuel pump, and the government, all on one easy-to-use platform. It really breaks down into 4 simple steps. First, the fisherman just downloads the app and registers their boat. Easy. Second, when they go to buy fuel, they pay the full price, but then they scan a QR code with the app. That logs the whole purchase. Third, and this is key, the app uses the phone's GPS to track their trip, so it knows exactly how far they went. And finally, step 4. At the end of the month, the system does the math, and the government deposits the subsidy right into their bank account. Boom, done. And here's the really brilliant part. The built-in fraud prevention. It's so simple, it's genius. The system automatically cross-references how much fuel was bought with how far the boat actually traveled. So if someone tries to game the system, buys a ton of fuel but their boat never leaves the harbor, the app knows. It flags it and poof, no subsidy for that period. It's a fantastic way to make sure the money is going exactly where it's supposed to active fishermen. Okay, so getting money to fishermen is obviously huge, but that's honestly just the beginning. The real game changer here, the thing that could have the biggest long-term impact, is all the data the app collects. Suddenly, every single fishing trip becomes this incredibly valuable piece of a much larger puzzle. So what are we talking about here? We're not just talking about 1 or 2 things. Look at this. We've got fuel consumption, how often boats go out, how far they travel, where the fishing hotspots are. They even have a digital logbook to track what's being caught. What this does is create this unbelievably rich, real-time database. It's a level of insight into the fishing industry they've just never, ever had before. So what's the big deal? Why does all this data matter? Well, for the people making the rules, for the policymakers, this stuff is pure gold. It means they can stop guessing and start making truly informed decisions about managing the fishing sector, about national energy planning, and about making sure taxpayer money is actually going where it's intended without getting lost along the way. And it's not just about policy and money. The app is also a lifesaver, literally. There's an SOS button built right in. If a fisherman gets into trouble, one tap sends their exact GPS coordinates straight to the maritime authorities. Plus, it pushes out real-time weather alerts and provides detailed maps of hazards. This isn't just a small improvement. This makes being out on the water fundamentally safer. And then there's the conservation angle, which is huge. For the first time, authorities can see with incredible precision where people are fishing and how intensely. That kind of information is crucial for things like setting up marine protected areas that actually work. It's about using data to manage these precious resources so they're still around for generations to come. So, they ran a pilot project in one province, and guess what? It was a big success. The natural next question is, okay, what's next? The path forward seems pretty clear. Step 1, take this thing nationwide to all the coastal areas. After that, it's about making this data a formal part of national planning for energy and conservation. And of course, you have to keep measuring the impact to see what's working. They're even talking about adding new features like a marketplace for selling fish or maybe even access to financial services. And this really brings us to the big takeaway, a final question to leave you with. This whole project is such a powerful model, right? Using simple, accessible technology to gather super precise data to untangle a really complex, long-standing problem. It really makes you think, what other huge challenges, not just in Thailand, but anywhere in the world, could be solved if we just started thinking this way?